You're alive. Great job. Now, here's the problem. In the 14th century, survival was just a fancy word for becoming a human ATM. Since you're wearing fancy plate armor, you're too expensive to kill but too heady to move. You're about to be held for ransom. Stressed about your laundry? Well, in the 1300s, to get that crisp white linen look, the best cleaning agent was aged human urine. It's high in ammonia, and surprisingly, it works. Suddenly, doing an extra load of laundry doesn't smell so bad. In the medieval times, two-factor authentication meant having the physical key and a guard who recognized your face. If you lost the key, you didn't get a reset link. You got a locksmith with a sledgehammer and a very expensive bill from the blacksmith. Frustrated because your roommate is playing music too loud after 10 p.m. This is the Great Hall, and you're sleeping with everyone. Dozens of adults, dogs, and probably a few chickens, all sharing one floor, one fire, and 0 partitions. In the 14th century, personal space wasn't a concept. Do you feel guilty because you spent your Sunday scrolling instead of building your brand or hitting the gym? In the 1300s, productivity died the moment the first frost hit. There were no lights, no roads, waiting for the dirt to unfreeze so you don't starve. It turns out, the original high-speed connection involved actual high risk of being eaten by wolves. The only notification you get is a horn blast. In the 14th century, fast meant a guy on a horse pushing himself to the point of collapse to deliver a single piece of paper. This is the trebuchet, the original long-range delete button. It turns potential energy into a projectile that can turn a fortress into a pile of gravel. In the 14th century, high-performance engineering didn't need a battery. It just needed 20 tons of rocks and the terrifying power of gravity. The knight next to you is wearing a small fortune in high-grade steel, the medieval equivalent of a bulletproof bunker. You're wearing a thick sweater and holding a sharpened stick. In the 1300s, putting in your hours meant standing in a line where your survival depended entirely on your tax bracket. Do you think modern sports hype is over the top with the pyrotechnics and all the fame? In the 1300s, there was one way to become famous, and it was a contact sport. You rode a half-ton of muscle toward another man, speeding at 30 miles an hour to prove you were worth the fame. You are a peasant in the 14th century, and your emergency response isn't a 911 call, it's a crossbow. You need to remember that people back then believed in witches, strange creatures, and spooky monsters. Safety meant a bit different things. If you saw a crime, you didn't call 911, you became the siren. The hue and cry was a law that forced every man to drop what they were doing and chase a criminal. Imagine the shock of being fined by the king, just because you didn't shout loud enough when you saw a robbery. In the Middle Ages, silence was a crime. During Christmas festivals, noble courts completely flipped the social hierarchy. A random peasant was crowned king for a week, and the real king had to obey his every command. It was a brilliant psychological release valve to keep the peace. Did you know that to take a castle, they'd build massive wooden skyscrapers on wheels? It was the ultimate mobile office, if your office was constantly on fire and being pelted with rocks. It was a marvel of medieval tech, provided you didn't mind the extreme height